Imagine being told that something humanity has dreamed about for thousands of years is impossible. In 1901, one of the world's leading scientists believed controlled powered flight was still decades, perhaps centuries away. Governments were investing money, universities were conducting research, and famous engineers were racing to solve the problem. Yet the people who finally succeeded weren't professors or government scientists. There were two brothers repairing bicycles in a small workshop in Dayton, Ohio. As I researched their story, I found myself asking a different question. It wasn't the size of the dog, it was the size of the fight in the dog. Being that how the Wright brothers learned to fly, it was why they were the only people that could do it. The answer begins long before the first aeroplane. Wilbur and Orville Wright grew up in a home where curiosity was expected. Their father, Milton, filled the house with books and encouraged the children to debate ideas, even if they disagreed with him. Their mother, Susan, was equally influential. She could repair machinery, design tools, and build things with their own hands. If something broke, she didn't just throw it away, she worked out why it failed. Their parents never set out to raise inventors, but they taught their children something far more valuable. Never accept an answer simply because an expert says it's true. One day, their father returned from a trip carrying a small rubber band powered helicopter toy. It only flew for a few seconds before falling back to the ground. Most children would have played with it till it broke. The Wright brothers did something different. They wanted to know why it flew. When the toy eventually broke, they built another one themselves. Looking back, that little toy wasn't important because it flew. It was important because it taught the two young boys that every mystery could be investigated. If the story ended there, it would simply be a tale of two curious brothers. But one unexpected event changed everything. At 18, Wilbur suffered serious facial injury during a game of hockey. The accident ended his plans to attend the university and left him isolated at home for years, where he then tended to his dying mother. At first glance, it seems like the time of his moment, his future disappeared. Yet, history suggests those quiet years transformed him. They made him patient, reflective, and relentless in solving difficult problems, qualities that would later define his work with Orville. When the brothers later opened a bicycle shop, few people would have guessed it was becoming one of history's most important engineering workshops. Every bicycle repaired taught them about balance, steering, and precision. Unlike a train that stays on the tracks, a bicycle is constantly on the edge of falling. Keeping it upright requires continuous control. Years later, when they turned to aviation, they realized some other inventors had overlooked. The greatest challenge wasn't making the machine fly, it was learning how to control it once it was in the air. This was the moment my research completely changed my understanding of the Wright brothers. I assumed their greatest breakthrough was building a better engine. It wasn't. They discovered that almost every aviation pioneer was relying on aerodynamic data that was simply wrong. Rather than accepting decades of public research, the brothers built their own wind tunnel and tested hundreds of wing designs themselves. They didn't just build a better aircraft, they proved that the science that of everyone that trusted it needed to be rewritten. On the cold morning of December 17th, 1903, after years of failure, broken wings, and endless experiments, the brothers stood together in the sand dunes at Kitty Hawk. Orville climbed aboard the flyer while Wilbur steadied one wing. The aircraft rose into the air for just 12 seconds and traveled only 37 meters. By modern standards, it was barely a hop. Yet those 12 seconds changed history. For the first time, an aircraft powered had taken off, flown under control, and landed safely. Most people remember those 12 seconds. Fewer remember what actually made them possible. It wasn't luck, it wasn't money, it wasn't even superior engineering. It was the willingness to question accepted knowledge. While others were trying to build more powerful engines, the Wright brothers were asked whether everyone understood the problem explicitly and correctly. The simple habit of asking better questions became their greatest invention. Every time we board an aircraft today, we benefit from far more than the Wright brothers' machine. Modern airlines, rescue helicopters, international trade, and even space exploration all trace their origins back to that first controlled flight. Yet perhaps the most important legacy isn't technological at all. The story reminds us that progress rarely belongs to the greatest source. More often, it belongs to the people willing to challenge assumptions, learn from failure, and keep asking questions that we never think to ask. When I began researching the Wright brothers, I thought I was telling the story of the invention of the aeroplane. Instead, I discovered something much more interesting. The greatest achievement wasn't simply flying. It was becoming the kind of people who could solve a problem everyone else approached the wrong way. A childhood filled with curiosity, a devastating personal setback, years spent repairing bicycles at and the courage to question accepted science, all preparing them for one extraordinary moment. The Wright brothers didn't change the world because they dreamed of flying. They changed it because they never stopped learning how to think.